think one of the benefits of Bad Time is that I'm hoping that people sense a trend in what we're putting out and just want to listen to the next thing, like no matter what it is. I want them to give it a chance. Like, okay, if you liked Catbite, you're probably going to like Thirsty Guys. You liked Thirsty Guys, you're probably going to like Omnigon. You liked Omnigon, you're probably going to like Gray Matter. So at least check it out.
Hey, Mike, welcome to the podcast. How you doing, man?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. How are you holding up during this whole crazy time?
I'm okay. Like anytime I ask somebody like, how are you doing? And somebody's just like, I'm fine. It's kind of like, I know you're not fine.
Right,
So, but I'm
right.
hanging in there. Yeah, doing
Good.
okay.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it, man. It's been a tough go for a lot of people, and
Yeah.
like I know that you and I have kind of briefly touched on this. Like we're fortunate that we have our jobs and that we're
Hmm.
able to kind of
Yeah.
maintain our lifestyle, as it were. I mean, we
Yep.
both run record labels. We're both in
Hmm.
bands. Like
Yep.
we're pretty active out there, and
Yep.
we consider ourselves very lucky. So
Yep.
doing
Even
what we
without
can to.
playing, even without the live show element, like I still, yeah, still we're still able to do what we do for the most part, which is nice. Yeah, very fortunate.
Right, and something that I really want to touch on, like, right away, is like, Bad Time Records has done to really try to give back, and that's something that I think is really profound and necessary. I mean, I'm never going to put anyone on blast if they don't necessarily like reach into their pockets and hand other
Sure.
people money, but
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I'm a huge advocate for that. Like, if you
Yeah.
have the means and if you have the extra, like, it's important. I think it's a valuable
Absolutely.
thing for people to try to do. But I got to say, like, I'm really impressed and stoked that you did that. So
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And yeah, it is important to do. I mean, there are lots of people who are hurting right now and lots of people who have lost their jobs and looking for work. But yeah, like you said, we're fortunate. We're still working and we've got these labels and yeah, I just felt like it was important to try to take a couple opportunities just to not only like raise awareness for some key issues, but just try to make some money back and do some good, while we can. So it's the right it's not just the right thing to do. It's like I think you have to do it. I mean, you're
yeah,
being nice to some people, but
well, no,
it's
I
kind
mean,
of
I know it's like, playing politics with that, it can
sure
get very tricky really
sticky.
easily.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I think for the most part, like, we both surround ourselves with people that are, of that mind, so that's kind of cool in
happy
that
to
respect.
say. Yeah,
But hey, man, so, for anyone
yeah,
that doesn't
yeah,
know who you are, just, give us like a brief idea of like who you are, what projects you're
yeah.
involved with, and, just kind of a general idea of where they can find that information.
Yeah, so my name's Mike Sosinski. I run a record label called Bad Time Records. We're based out of the Bay Area, California, not too far from you, Andy.
Mhm.
I'm in Alameda. And also, I also play in a band called Kill Lincoln, a
Mhm.
ska-punk band. And yeah, those are my two big projects right now. Bad Time. There's a lot of bands. We're doing a lot of stuff. I'm trying to spread the good word of ska punk in 2020. And it is a good word. I think there's so much good happening in the ska punk world. So I'm trying to kind of give a platform to some bands that I feel like we're missing out for the past maybe decade or two. So
Hey,
trying to do my part. Yeah.
I'm all for it, man. I think it's wonderful. And like, who were a few of the bands on the label for anyone who doesn't know?
Yeah, so Kill Lincoln, of course, my
Mhm.
band, that was kind of one of the reissues we did, kind of started the label. We Are the Union put out their first record on vinyl, reissued that. Omnigon, who are also from the Bay Area, which is Adam Davis, ex-member of Link 80, also
Mhm.
Barry Kripine, who is also in Link 80 and the Blast Bandits. Catbite out of Philadelphia, who are fucking excellent. Sorry, I don't know if I'm not supposed to curse or what,
No,
but
cursing's fine.
I have to do that when it's Catlight. They are fucking great out of Philly. Thirsty Guys from New Jersey, Dissidente from Pittsburgh, Gray Matter from Michigan. I know I'm gonna forget somebody and feel real bad. Free Kick from Japan. Yeah, and there's lots of bands I'm really close with. We did a compilation recently, last year, that was benefiting the ACLU. It had tons of bands participate, like Joystick from New Orleans, Jay Navarro from the Suicide Machines. His band Jay Navarro and the Traders contributed an amazing track to that comp. So yeah, just a lot of people that I've known for a long time and have toured with and have been on the road with and have played half-empty rooms to that I thought was undeserved. A lot of bands I thought were super talented I met over the years, just wanted to get them all together and create more of a platform, more of a family atmosphere, you know. So that's kind of the goal.
That's killer, man. Yeah, I mean, I was, into the whole ska scene for many years. Back in my pre and pre, through, and post college days. I happened to play in the blast bandits with Barry back in the day for a while. Yeah, you didn't know that?
I didn't know that. Wow. Okay. So I'm like telling you.
Yeah, I was. I came in as a saxophone player for them initially.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
Then, I actually ended up switching over to bass. I'll let Barry tell you that story, but.
Okay. Barry's a super nice guy. Every time.
No, Barry's great.
He's so sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Barry's dude. He's an amazingly talented guy. Like,
extremely.
Like Omnigon is sincerely like a project that I am so thrilled happened.
Oh, it's amazing. And I know like Adam is such a prolific writer, but also he wrote like 20 or 30 songs for that first record and another record that hasn't come out yet. And then I know Barry has a whole bunch of songs for like another record. So they're just like, yeah, it's really exciting to see what they're putting out. And just being a big, previous Link 80 fan, like it was just kind of amazing to meet Adam and Barry and kind of make all that happen. But yeah.
Yeah, I love the story of how the two of you met like at a gym in Alabama. Yeah. And like you happen to be wearing, what was it?
I was wearing an Asian Man Records shirt.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, by the way.
Yeah, it's super weird because I moved, I'm in Alameda. I've only been in California for 4 years at this point.
Okay.
And you move to a new town and you think like you're the only person who likes punk or ska or whatever in your whole town. You just really don't know yet. So I'm like at the gym and like I see this guy and I'm like, I feel like I'd actually met Adam before. I met him at the AMR 20. For the Link 80 reunion. Okay. But it was like 2 seconds. It was like, hey, like our mutual friend introduced us, Brent, and he had no idea who I was. He was about to do a Narboots set, and he was like on another planet. I don't know if you've ever seen a Narboots set, but he was like not in the frame of mind to remember somebody. But anyway, I'd met him a long time ago, and then I saw him at my gym, and I was like, oh, should I say something? Is this weird? Like, I don't want to be a weird person. And he came up to me because I was wearing the Asian Man shirt, and he was like, yeah, I was in this band Link 80. And he always tells people, oh, I told Mike I was in Link 80, and he just went, oh. Acting like he was worried that I was not a Link 80 fan.
Oh,
but it was completely the opposite. I was just kind of like, I'm just a very socially awkward person. So,
yeah, aren't we all?
So I just didn't know what to say. But anyway, it's just a crazy coincidence that we're in the same town. We live really close to each other and can work together on new music.
Right. Well, and that was the Link 80 set that he kind of credits to being like the catalyst for him to really want to get back into the ska-punk world. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it's kind of kismet, in that respect. So
exactly. It's just crazy. Yeah.
No, that's awesome, man. And like, I have mad respect for Adam and Barry, and it's cool that they're collaborating. It's cool that they got Joey, back on playing drums, and like Ryan Noble's brother played drums for a little bit,
just like the cast of characters who've come through Omnigon. It's like in addition to the Link 80 folks, like they've had like Brent from Euro Union that was playing drums, Jeremy from Ska Network did some trombone, and our buddy Pook from Beat the Red Light in the UK did some trombone, and I know I'm going to forget more people. But
they had Steve from
exactly, yep. And
who's got a really cool like dub project he's been doing.
Satori,
yeah,
cool.
Like it's really cool that when you see a band like Link 80 who were kind of like a storied band, like they were road dogs. They went out and they played like just hundreds of shows, and like they certainly built a great name for themselves, and then like they went on and tried to do like Dessa and and then since then they've moved on and done like a bunch of other projects, and it's really cool to see that happen, to
Hmm.
see these guys just not stop. And like,
Yeah,
they're growing
absolutely.
as artists and musicians, but then at the same time, like if Barry and Adam want to come back and play some ska punk, like, dude, they're gonna play some ska punk, and
Exactly.
it's still really like Omnigon. That
Yeah.
record's solid. It's
Yeah,
super
it's
fun.
so good. And yeah, it never leaves you, right? It's like once
Right.
you're in that like that ska punk world, like, and I know it's so cool to get to talk to Adam because we've formed this friendship, and I get to pick his brain about a lot of things and hear a lot of tour stories and a lot of recording stories and a lot of good stuff, and it's just cool to hear, how he used to view the scene and how it's changed and like getting back into it, and he would say that the ska scene has never been better.
Okay.
I think I was just listening to him on another podcast, maybe a few days ago or 2 days ago, where they asked him like, "What's the scene? Is the scene better?" And Adam was saying it's better now just because it's more. I guess when Link 80 used to play, when they were mixing hardcore, like even the ska fans didn't really know what to do with that. Now it's more accepted to be blending genres and having these multi-bill shows with bands that don't exactly fit, and people seem to be more accepting of that. And I think that's true in a lot of cases. People are way more into these niche genres now, and you just have to find your sweet spot with it. So
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you say that, because one of the things that I saw for a while there, at least from my personal perspective, was that it
mhm,
felt like there was that happening actually for quite a long time, where you would go to any show and you might
mhm,
see like a ska band, a hardcore band, like an indie rock band, or an emo band,
yep,
and they'd all be on the same bill, and that was okay.
hmm,
Like,
yeah,
fans, I think, were a little bit more like open to that for a minute.
sure,
But then it kind of
yeah,
seemed like it like the rules kind of got more stiff, and so the
yeah,
polarization of like the genres became a little bit
right,
more dialed in, where it was, no, this is only a hardcore show, or like, no, this is
yeah,
only a
yeah,
ska show, and like, this is only an emo show.
yeah,
And and that, I mean, it didn't really bother me per se, but I just kind of really noticed it. I was like, oh wow, like, you don't, like promoters, I think a lot of it was like promoters and venues like kind of understood. It's like, well, we're starting to see people be a little bit more interested in only the one
sure,
genre, so
right.
so
Plus, if
those
you could
shows
fill up a if you could fill up a bill with all ska bands, like, well, now there's 8 ska bands, like, let's put them all on a bill, and why not? And
right.
it seems to make sense in theory,
Right.
but
Well, and but then that comes its own set of problems, because
sure
then
does.
you've got people who are like, well, I'm only coming to see this one ska band, and I don't want to sit through
Exactly.
8 other ska bands, or like whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. Like, there's tons of like conversations that could be had about like whether or not that was right or wrong or whatnot.
Yeah.
But I think it's really actually pretty awesome that the ska scene in general seems to be going through like a revitalization,
Hmm.
and has been for the last few years. And you guys, with not only Kill Lincoln but with Bad Time Records, seem to be a huge piece of that. And
Hmm.
your affiliation with Ska2 Network. I mean, Ska2
Hmm.
Network is like a force of nature. I mean, like,
Jeremy works harder than anybody I know. Like, they are
it's
really just
incredible.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, like the amount of content that Jeremy's putting out is nuts. And Jeremy is always hyping up the general ska scene. So like, yeah, big shout out to Jeremy Ska 2 Network. Like, if anybody
I,
listening is not aware, which I find hard to believe, like, yeah, go check out Ska 2 Network.
Yeah, I mean, I personally haven't met him. I managed to see the set at Fest last year,
Hmm.
and geez Louise, like, what an
Yeah.
awesome show. I mean,
Yeah,
I was
well, that
there.
fest
Yeah.
show in general, like that was just, I mean, that for a ska show, especially at Fest, which, and we'd played Fest. I don't know how many years have you played Fest? Was it
We
just
played
last year?
we played last year and then the year before.
Right. Okay. We played. I think our first fest was like 2014, and we've played like 5 or 6 of them, and they've always been really good. And we've played that venue before, but it's never been like a bill of ska punk bands that was that solid and got that kind of response. Like filling up that venue was just like we were all looking at each other being like something's happening, like people are really into this, and
Right.
fest people are sometimes hard to win over. Like I don't know, like they're amazing. I mean, I have so many good fest friends, but like, they want to see the Menzingers, they want to see, the fest punk bands, right?
Sure.
And when you have your ska bill, they put all the ska bands on one stage. We're all thinking, oh, great, is this just going to be the venue that everybody ignores? and
Right.
to see that it was the opposite was just like it was a wild experience. It was
Oh
really
man,
cool.
like a group of us showed up. Like I kind of came in and out. I caught you guys. I caught
Hmm.
Ska Network. I caught Catbite,
Hmm.
and I caught a little bit of another band, and the name is
Is it
escaping me.
SMN?
I'm
SMN
sorry.
from Japan? SMN? They were
That
right
must have
before
been it.
us.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But I mean, from top to bottom, that show was one of the best shows of the entire fest. Like
Yeah, it's
from
crazy.
as far as like the lineup, as far as I'm concerned. I
Yeah.
mean,
I
talk
enjoyed your
about just
set,
a.
by the way.
I'm sorry.
I enjoyed your set, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no,
When you got the Kill Link and horns up there, that was kind of fun.
no, I dude, and honestly, like huge shout out to you guys for helping to put us that helping us put that together
Yeah,
because
of course.
that was totally last minute and
Oh, they were
we
so
were
stoked
not
to do
sure
it.
how it was going to come together, but we pulled it off.
Yeah, yeah. Food and Nume were very stoked to do it. When I was like, "Yeah, like you guys want to play with Tsunami Bomb?" They were like, "Hell yeah!" So that was really cool.
Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, like we did a cover of Dead Man's Party, and we were involved as a secret set
Hmm.
at Fest,
Hmm.
and we decided to go ahead and do that, and we had donned all this makeup, and like we're just
Hmm.
as like kind of skeletons, and at the like I think it was like 3 weeks prior to Fest, I kind of gave Mike a shout out. I was like, "Hey, do you think you guys would be interested in playing horns, the
Hmm.
horn parts for this song?" And they're like, "Sure, why not?" And
Yeah.
so and then they surprised us the day of, and they're like, "Yeah, we're the guys from Kill Link," and we're like, "Okay."
Yeah.
So
I think yeah, like they literally showed up like right before the set, and we're like, "Hey,
yeah,
we're here," and you're like, "Great."
all right,
So,
and so just get up, and then
yeah.
the only problem was that we forgot to mention to the sound guy, and they didn't have any mics.
Yeah.
We were like, "Oh
I was
shit."
like right at
Okay,
the front of
so
the stage, so I could hear everything. So I was like, yeah, that's cool.
yeah, but it was a really fun time. I mean,
Yeah, it was
that was
great.
a great time. But
Yeah.
okay, yeah, man. So oh, so sorry. One thing that I really
Yeah.
wanted to point out too is like something that I've really come to admire about the way that Bad Time Records and that whole kind of crew that you have rolling there
Hmm.
has going for them. And man, like I wish that this was something that I would see more often. And I'm starting to see it a little bit more. Maybe it's because I'm looking in the right places,
Sure.
but man, like you guys are all so great about like elevating each other. Like
Yeah.
I see Adam and Omnigon like reposting stuff that Kill Lincoln posts. I see you reposting stuff that Omnigon posts. I see Catbite,
Yeah.
posting stuff that Ska-tune Network posts. And whether or not it's band related or if it's
Yep.
related to any of the social justice stuff that's going on, like all
Yep.
the protests and
Yep.
all that stuff. Like I got to say, like that's awesome. And
Yeah.
I really would encourage like anyone out there like in a band,
Yep.
like if it takes you less than 30 seconds to do it, just do it. Like I mean,
Just do it.
any kind of boosting can go
Yep.
such a long way.
Yeah, and I think like first of all, it was sort of part of the mission of Bad Time Records. Like when Catbite was actually one of the first bands that really came onto the label, and like we talked a lot about what I wanted the label to be about because I had to explain it to them before they agreed to let me put out their record. And I wanted to not just create a platform, but like really create a sense of it sounds cheesy to say like family, but like I want us to be like a family that we're helping each other. I want us to like become friends and actually like support each other because I think we've all been in the ska scene for a long time. Us and even Catbite is a new band, but Tim, played in the Snails for years, and that's how I know him from way back. But being in the ska scene for a long time in its current state, we all know what it's like to not be supported. We all know what it's like to not get support of like the top tier ska punk bands. We know what it's like for labels to ignore us, and we know what it's like for venues to not want to book a ska show. So we've all kind of been through that, and we know that we are our own support system, and we have to be. So it's really just like it was formalizing that idea. So Bad Time was meant to like let's all support each other. Like if somebody's doing something, even if they're on the periphery, like I try to, there's enough work to do with current Bad Time bands, but I try to branch out and just promote other ska punk bands too that I think are doing good work. But yeah, like we have to support each other. It's really we're all we've got, until something changes. But yeah, it's sort of essential.
Oh, 100%. And like, I applaud your guys' efforts. I think that all those steps like make a huge difference. And
Yeah.
it really does give that sense that you guys are trying to be more of like a community and like,
Yeah.
lack of a better word, like a family, and
Yeah.
I mean, shit, like if there was any genre, that you'd think this would be like a no brainer for, it would be like the ska scene.
Yeah, and there actually is like I feel like there's a little bit more like competition sometimes in the ska scene. If
Hmm.
if some bands like feel like they're not getting to play certain shows, they'll blame it on other bands, and there's a lot of like inner scene drama. And I just want to like put all that to bed. Like we need to support each other, like
Right.
because we're all we've got for real. So yeah, and then
Yeah.
we are all friends. Like everybody on the label, like Adam and the folks from Catbite, like haven't actually met, but they've talked so much. Like we've been on email threads and text chains and all this stuff, and they like virtually hang out all the time. So
Right.
eventually they'll hang out for real. But like yeah, everyone's friendly, everyone's on the same page. We're all like-minded people. So yeah, we just want to help each other.
That's killer, man. Yeah, I mean, and not for nothing. Like, I sincerely think that Catbite record is one of the best ska punk records, like or ska
So
records
cool.
that's come out in the last like 10 years, man.
Yeah, so
It's
refreshing.
awesome.
It's yeah, it's a really original take on ska and punk, and like it's not really a punk record,
Right. There's not really a punk record, but it's got a punk
but it's got
energy.
that yeah, it's got that heart to it. It's like you can
Yeah.
tell that they're punks playing like ska, rock and roll. Like it's just got that like grit to it. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just love the sound they're making, and I've got some peeks at their second record, and I'm yeah very excited.
Oh, I'm excited too, man. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
I'm eager to see where that band takes things. But
yeah,
yeah, man. So I wanted to kind of get into a few like kind of more fun questions with
yeah.
you,
Let's
and
do
I
it.
get like your idea on some things. But
Yeah,
so if you were trapped on like a desert island, I mean, this is kind of like one of those generic
yeah,
questions,
yeah,
but like what are like 5 records that you'd say
yeah,
are like top 5, can never get tired of,
yeah,
records that
yeah.
maybe you just could play over and over and over.
Yeah, this is. I always have trouble with these types of questions just because I have a hard time nailing down favorites of things, but I
Sure.
think I can do records because I've been thinking about it. There's one record in particular that I call it my like if I'm on the plane and the plane's going down, like what am I putting on my headphones? That record for me is Mighty Mighty Boss Tones live at the Middle East.
Okay. Wow.
That
Live
record
record.
for I love that live record. I'm not always like a live record guy, but that record to me, it's I get they did that show right after Let's Face It came out, so it's got all the best songs from Let's Face It, plus most of the early Boss Tones discography. Just like the energy on that record, it sounds great first of all, but just like the energy just brings me to a show. Like especially right now, not going to shows anytime soon. That kind of record, that live sound, like really gets me there. I love that record. It always puts me in a good mood. So live at the Middle East. Okay, I'll do a couple more rapid fire.
No, no, I mean,
uh,
take your time, man. Seriously.
okay, well, I think if I was on a deserted island, I'd want to mix it up a little bit genre-wise.
Sure.
I'm a huge Johnny Cash fan.
Okay.
I actually love a lot of like classic country, like Hank Williams, Johnny Cash, Patsy Cline. So I would go with like another live record, live at Folsom Prison. It's just
Solid.
solid. Yeah, it's all the hits, like Johnny Cash being Johnny Cash, fucking great. Um, I think I gotta put London Calling on there. Love the Clash. And if I were to pick a Clash record, like why not London Calling?
Yeah. No,
um,
it's an amazing record.
what would some others? What would two others be? I wind up listening to at home. I wind up listening to a lot of jazz while I'm like, doing work, while I'm cooking. I'm a huge like Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers fan, a big Coltrane fan. So maybe one of their records. I don't know if I could pick a favorite. What's a fifth record? I don't know. Let's say that Catbite record.
Hey, no, I
Let's do it.
honestly, I think those are all solid
Awesome.
picks, man. Yeah, no,
Yeah, and
I do.
it's like tough because I'm like, I listen to a lot of music. I'm sure you do too. I mean, we all do. So it's just hard to it's hard to pick.
Yeah, no, I know that those kind of questions can be so tough to like just pick
Yeah,
only 5, I mean,
yeah.
but I don't know.
I'm glad you didn't ask movies though, because that would be harder actually.
No, I'm sure of it. It's funny. I listen to a lot of jazz at home too. Like, because I work in programming during the day, and
Yeah, yeah,
during when I'm working, it's tough for me to listen to anything that has words in it.
yeah.
So I listen to a lot of like post rock or like
Hmm.
instrumental or like lo-fi
Hmm.
beats, and then like
Yep,
I have like kind of my jazz standards that I go
yep.
through. Quite a few. So
Yeah,
yeah, good on
definitely.
you, man. That's rad.
Definitely do the lo-fi beats myself too.
Oh, that's it. Dude,
Yeah,
those
chill beats
playlists are
to
Spotify as
study and
well.
relax too, like or whatever
Oh,
it is.
totally. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, big time.
But Yeah, so one of the things that I kind of wanted to, you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but like, what do you think about the ska scene, like in terms of like its growth right now, and like, is there
Mm.
anything that do you think that it's gonna like get even more popular or like more like in the
Yeah,
like out there, like more people are gonna be drawn to it, kind of like a
yeah,
fourth wave, as it were,
yeah.
or do you feel like maybe I mean, we've had a couple of bands like, get a little bit more attention, like the Interrupters is probably like
Most
the most about.
mainstream, right?
Yeah,
That
they're
anybody,
probably
yeah,
the most mainstream
yeah,
ska punk band right now. But
yeah.
do you see it continuing to grow, or do you think that we maybe have hit like a little bit of a peak?
I don't know. It's. I definitely think it's growing, and it's going. I do think it's going to continue to grow. Do I think it's going to reach the mainstream, like in the way that I'm thinking about it? Maybe not. Like I think there will always be a band like the Interrupters, or like somebody's going to come along and kind of get some sort of radio play or mainstream cred. Rancid was on the radio for a long time, even after the ska punk bubble kind of burst. So there will always be someone like that, maybe, but the ska punk scene, in the way I see it, I think a lot of people are starting to. I mean, first of all, okay, music is just so easy to find right now. I mean, like
Oh,
you can
it's
just
incredibly easy.
it's so accessible, which is good, but also difficult to since there's so much, it's hard to like actually get people to sit down and listen to specific things. So, but do I think ska in general is going to get bigger and bigger? I don't know. Like, I it's hard to say if it's going to get like commercially successful. You know, like Kill Lincoln is doing okay. Like we're doing well enough now to keep being a band, which for a bi-coastal band, like it takes a lot of resources and money and time to like make that band work. So, we basically just sold out of our first vinyl pressing of our new record, and it's first of all that's incredible and something I never expected, but second of all, it's like I that makes me happy because it means we get to keep being a band. It doesn't mean we're all going to like get rich off of it or going to be able to support ourselves, which would be lovely, but it just means that we get to keep playing and we get to keep touring and we get to go back to Japan. We get to do a US tour eventually. So that type of success, I hope, happens for more ska punk bands where they're able to just keep doing it. I think a lot of bands stop playing because it just becomes a drain on their life. Other things take precedence, job, family. I hope that more bands are able to get that moderate level of success that at least lets them take a week off from their job and like maybe not lose their apartment because of it. So I'm hoping that happens, and I think it's possible.
No, totally. And by the way, congratulations on
Thank you.
selling
Yeah.
through the first pressing. I mean, that's
It's
an incredible
unfucking
task
believable.
for any band right now.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's something we absolutely never expected. I was like, if we sell out of the two special variants, we had like three variants. It's like if we sell out of those two variants, like I'll be so stoked. I'll be like huge success. And we sold out of the whole fucking pressing, and I'm just like, yeah, it's wild. I did not
No,
expect that at all.
I mean, shoot, dude. As as somebody who kind of runs my own label too, it's like you always just want to you want to break even, if nothing
Yeah,
else, and like
that's
you
always been the goal of Bad Time. It's like if
right.
we could break even, I'd be so happy.
Oh, totally. Like with Sell the Heart, like my whole
Yeah.
mission statement the whole time has always been, what, like at the end of the day, like any money that I make off of this is going to go right back into the label.
Exactly. Yep.
So as far as I'm concerned, breaking even is the goal.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
anything else is just cake.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
you always hope that you'll find like a solid crew of like maybe like a couple hundred people that are just gonna like be really interested in like the stuff that
Yep.
you're releasing,
Yep.
and you can just kind of count on them to be the ones to buy your records no matter what.
Exactly. Yep.
And it's that's hard, and as
Hmm.
you grow as a
Really
label and
hard.
as you expand your roster and everything, like things get a little bit more complicated because people's tastes are different, and like
Yep.
the same 200 people that maybe bought the Kill Linker record may not be into Omnigon, so you
Yep.
don't I mean that's a roll of the
You never
dice.
know.
but
Yep.
but I would say that you guys are doing a pretty good job at like honing in on like a pretty good you know like I wouldn't call it like a like everyone's like, it's not like all your bands are similar like in the regard like the sound, but there
But they
is
are.
like that
Yeah.
that sense of like, yeah, like they all belong together,
Yeah.
like
And I
to a
want,
degree. Yeah.
and like they're all bands that like, obviously I want to try like different things and different takes on the genre. I mean, if you've heard this, the Gray Matter record, Climbing Out, I think it's one of the most original takes on ska punk that I've ever heard. And I knew when I heard the record that it was something amazing that I wanted to be involved with getting out to people. But I also knew that some people might not be into it because it's a little off the wall. It's like, I don't know if you knew the Blue Meanies at all.
Absolutely.
It's
Yes.
like very Blue Meanies, and I have a lot of friends that love the Asian Man roster. But when I mention Blue Meanies, they're like, "No, I'm not into that." So like, I get it; it's a little strange. But at the same time, yeah, I'm looking for bands that are all kind of in the same vein. Like Omnigon and Catbite aren't really similar, but they have that same spirit,
Right.
and I think that people will appreciate that over time. And it's going to change. Eventually it's going to, things are going to evolve. Like hopefully ska punk goes in a different direction too. Like I don't know where it's going to go, but
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting thing to think about. It's like, with ska music in general, you have like the different you know, subgenres. You have like the
yeah,
rocksteady and the blue beat and like the
sure. Oh yeah.
traditional ska, for lack of a better word. And then you
Yep.
have, the ska punk, and then you have like dub and like,
Hmm.
um, you know, any kind of variation. And then you can get kind of
Yep.
blend into like the hardcore ska punk, and
Yeah.
then
So many subgenres.
jazz infused ska punk and like whatever. And like,
Yeah.
it kind of makes you wonder where else you could go with it.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's probably all sorts of different places you could go with it if you really tried, I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah,
um,
and I definitely err towards I lean towards the ska punk, ska core kind of sound, like mixing either hardcore punk with ska. I mean, I love traditional ska, blue beat, Prince Buster, Desmond Decker, that regularly on my turntable, but like I also grew up with punk, I just like I love the energy. I love like the wild nature of punk rock, and also the messaging, the political nature of punk rock. And I think punk and ska mix so well together, and there's so many possibilities. Like, we're still making a variation of a type of music that was, I guess, coined in the late '80s by the Boss Tones, right? Like if they really coined ska-core, like we're still making variations of that are still wildly different and still really cool at the same time. So there's so much you can do, I think.
totally. So here's another question for you.
Hmm.
So because Kill Lincoln is, this bi-coastal band at this point,
Hmm.
it's really just you over on the West Coast, and then everyone
Yep.
else is on the East Coast, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
One of the things that I'm kind of trying to tap into with everyone on this podcast is, if you can give me an idea of maybe some artists or bands that you know of that maybe
Mm.
no one else has heard of, like
Mm.
who are some bands that people should really look at?
That no one else has heard of.
I mean, it doesn't
Hmm.
necessarily like it doesn't have to be like literally no one else has heard of, but like
Sure.
just maybe some bands that you've come across in
Yeah.
your time as a band that haven't seen
Yeah.
as much
Yeah. Absolutely.
notoriety or whatever, but
Yeah.
you think are absolutely like worth the attention.
Well, there's and a lot of those bands are either on the label or going to be on the label, but just because I've that's been sort of my goal. Like a band like Stuck Lucky and Still Alive. Both of those bands are so fucking good. And Still Alive, I've toured with a lot and played with a lot, and they are so heavy and so original, and they just seamlessly go from like like just the hardest metal, like riffiest metal, to like dub reggae like in an instant, and it's so smooth. And I feel like they never really get enough recognition. Stuck Lucky too. I mean, they've been doing this for a long time. They were on Community Records for a long time. Always been a super cool ska punk, ska core band that was always hitting the road, always doing a lot of cool shows. But I just feel like never like broke through whatever the bubble is. I feel like they never get enough respect. Then and the number one band that always comes up on in my head when I get asked this question, like who's the most underrated ska punk band, and it's the Best of the Worst from New Jersey.
Okay.
They are probably my favorite, one of my favorite bands of all time. Like they'd be in my top three. They are such a talented group of musicians, and they have this discography that's like several albums long, and it's all so original, and it's so technical but fun and like catchy, introspective lyrics, good horn parts, like ska in 5/4 time signatures, like weird stuff, but it's just so much fun. And live they absolutely kill it. And they have a good following in New Jersey where they're from, and like they're sort of like a band's band. Like every band knows about them and respects the hell out of them. But I just feel like they deserve, like, they should be like, I don't know, wherever the interrupters are or whatever. Like they're just so good, and Yeah, they're that number one band for me that like
That's
people
awesome.
people people should know about, but maybe they don't. Best of the
That's
worst for sure.
that's killer. I mean, it sounds like maybe they might fall into that same, type of, I mean, it's not a negative word in this respect, but like pitfall that like say a band like Fishbone, kind of gets,
Mm.
fallen into, because like Fishbone is A, incredible,
Oh,
B,
love
like
Fishbone.
like why people can't understand how amazing they are is beyond me. But like,
Oh man,
yeah, I think that
at Riot Fest a couple years ago, I remember like watching this Fishbone set, and it was just like there just should have been like 10,000 more people watching this Fishbone set. I was like, what the hell is going on? And it was
yeah,
Fishbone is so good. I think Angelo is one of the best frontmen of all time. Like,
hands down, I could
so
not
good.
agree with you more. Yeah, and
But
like
yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, but they kind of like they tried to mix in different genres and flex some artistic muscle, and they never really got that credit that they deserve. But every other band like cites them as a reference, as a waypoint. It's just like
it's true.
there's yeah,
Like
no
for
justice.
for bands like the Chili Peppers and Jane's
Hmm.
Addiction and No Doubt to
Hmm.
all three effectively say that Fishbone's one of their favorite bands and like deserves more credit. Like, dude, that's
Yeah.
significant.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if
Not
you
not to
saw that.
mention the literally like thousands of other bands that
Yeah.
cite that band as a huge influence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I don't know if you saw that the ska documentary, the '90s, Pick It Up, the ska '90s
It's
documentary.
funny. I haven't watched it yet,
Yeah,
but
you should
yeah,
check it out.
yeah, I will. Yeah.
The guy who made it, Taylor Morden, he ran in the DC ska scene for a long time, so we ran into him a lot, and I actually helped out with some of the motion graphics in the movie, which is kind of cool. But in that documentary, everyone cites Fishbone as a. It's like, oh, who's one of your biggest influences? And all these ska punk bands just talk about Fishbone.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're just yeah, exactly. They are one of those bands that definitely deserve more recognition.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In your travels as a band, like, are there any particular like scenes or areas that you would say are really kind of like heavily elevating like the ska scene at this point? Like, I know that Adams kind of really talked a lot about the LA scene right
Hmm.
now. I
The
think
LA
specifically, what are we saying? Like the East LA scene?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
LA ska scene, East LA scene is huge, and it's one of those things where like I haven't played enough shows there. I've just heard the stories, and I feel like a lot of for all the touring we've done and for all the touring a lot of ska bands have done, I know that like a lot of bands think that LA is a hard place to hit. Um, when in fact like the LA ska scene is huge. So it's like another mission of mine is to try to like blend these bubbles. Like ska scene can be very scene by like city by city, scene by scene, and we really need to start meshing that together and figuring out how we can do all this together. But anyway, other scenes that have surprised me across the country. I was shocked by the Denver ska scene. There's like a
Okay.
huge ska punk scene in Denver. At least the last time I was there, just a couple of years ago. Just like a couple hundred kids coming out just for a bunch of locals, and it's like absolutely wild. Some really good bands out there. New Jersey has always had a really strong ska scene. I actually grew up in New Jersey, as did a couple of the other guys in Kill Lincoln. And we always cite like people are like, "Oh, like were you guys always influenced by DC hardcore?" And we're like, "No, like we're influenced by Jersey hardcore, like like Lifetime
Lifetime
and
and
bands
yeah,
like and like Folly. I don't know if you know Folly, but like
I
they're
know
one
the
of
name. Yeah.
oh my god, they're like literally they're like if Dillinger Escape Plan was also like a ska band. It's just like they're completely bonkers, like
Okay.
amazing band. And it would be like a show would be like them and kids just like windmilling across the room, and then it'd be like Mustard Plug, and it was just like such a weird mix. But in New Jersey, like I feel like that was happening all the time. Like it was always hardcore bands and the ska bands together, and like the ska bands wound up having to have more of an edge to sort of like prove they could hang with the hardcore kids.
Right.
So like that was a big influence on me like writing heavier music and wanting to do like more of the hardcore side of things. But
That's cool. And
yeah,
then you have like the glue that holds it all together with like the bouncing souls, kind of
yep, absolutely.
taking it all and saying, "Yep, this is Jersey." So-
Yep, huge Souls fan. And like I mean not to forget a band like Catch 22,
Sure. Yeah.
who really like I think kind of blended that sound like the best out of anybody and like really created this like Jersey ska punk boom. There's so many bands that like wanted to be just like Catch 22, and that's why to this day most Jersey ska shows have like 20 ska punk bands on them. It's like it's just a huge scene there still.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's you know, it's funny. Catch 22 is one of the bands that I never found
Mm.
myself listening to, and it's not because I didn't want to. I just
Yeah.
yeah, and I remember
Well, I
seeing their name everywhere. You know.
I find that it's a coastal thing too. I mean,
Yeah.
Streetlight is huge, right? So when they
Right.
when it turned into Streetlight, like everyone knows Streetlight now. But like, yeah, it was a coastal thing on the East Coast. Like everybody knew Catch 22. If you were into ska or punk, like everybody knew them. But coming out here and like talking, like I'll talk to Adam, and of course he knows Catch 22 because I think Link 80 played once or twice with them. But like a lot of like the ska kids out here like don't really know the same bands. Like they're not as big into Catch 22. They're not as big into Big D and the Kids Table. They're not even as big into Mustard Plug. You know, out here it's Voodoo Glow Skulls and Link 80 and Slow Gherkin and all those kinds of Skank and Pickle.
Right.
So
And
it
of course,
is
all like the Orange County bands. Yeah.
yeah, and the Orange County bands. So it's a
Right.
bit of a coastal thing. So I get that. But like for us in Jersey, like in a high school ska band, like yeah, be like starting out into ska and realizing that there's this amazing ska punk band like from a couple towns away. It was just like eye opening for me. That was a huge record. Keysby Nights was like a hugely influential record for me, big
That's
time.
rad. Yeah. Speaking of like the coastal stuff, like one of the things that I remember like when I was younger was we had a few more ska centric labels. Like we
Hmm.
had Moon Ska,
Yep.
which I think was like singer from the Toasters label,
His
right?
Buckets label. Yep.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
right. And then I mean, I remember seeing a bunch of those bands come through the West Coast
Hmm.
over the years. And then you of course had Asian Man,
Asian
doing
Man.
their thing. And I mean,
Jump Up.
you know,
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Jump Up record.
That's
Yep.
right. Jump Up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I forgot about that one.
Yep.
But, right now it kind of seems like Bad Time might be one of the only really, I mean, I know it's not purely a ska label,
Hmm.
with respect to it's like, I'm sure that are considering working with other bands that aren't necessarily ska or I mean, are
I'm
you
trying to stay in that.
strictly staying in ska?
I don't want to be like, the genre police about it, but I'm
Right.
trying to stay in the ska punk world because, I mean, there
Okay.
are labels that support ska and support reggae. One of the reasons I wanted to start Bad Time is because at this moment, there is no label that says, I'm just going to do ska punk. And I mean, probably the biggest reason for that is financial. Like ska
Right.
punk hasn't made anybody a lot of money in a long time. But obviously, I'm not as interested in the money. I just want to, like you said, break even. But I really just want to support the scene. But that was part of the reason why I wanted to do it because like nobody was doing it, and for the longest time, like I was heavily influenced by Asian Man Records. That was probably my favorite label growing up. Like I remember just once I think I ordered like an MU330 like Christmas album or something, and I just get this box. It was around the holidays, and I get this box, and it's just like filled with stuff. Like Mike just threw in a whole bunch of stuff, like stickers and posters and Blue Meanies live album and like all this other stuff. And I was just so blown away, and that's all I listened to for weeks. And it was just, it really like touched me in a way. And like thinking back, I was just like, yeah, just to have like a label like kind of I don't know curate this stuff and like and offer it to me. It was just kind of amazing. So I look up to Asian Man in a huge way, and I kind of you know want to do a lot of that and like take on a lot of that ethos and yeah, and there's really nobody at the moment doing just ska punk. Like there are a lot of labels in the past couple of years that did a little bit of ska punk, like Community Records, Asbestos Records. They would do a little bit, but wasn't really their focus. And I really want to just like put a stake in the ground and say like, this is what we're doing. Like there are awesome bands out there. There are awesome ska punk bands. Like get on board because we're going. So
Well, I mean, honestly, I think that that's something that you've got in your favor, as a label, because I mean, you kind of know who your audience is,
mm,
like people that are into ska music,
yeah,
like, one of the things that Sell the Heart does, we don't stick to one specific style of music.
yeah,
And that's really just because it's a reflection of like, my personal taste. I mean,
yeah,
like, I'm
absolutely.
not suggesting that you only like ska music or anything like that, but I mean, like I've always wanted to have like my record label be a little bit more of a reflection of like my eclectic, taste in music and be like,
Yeah,
yeah, like I like all this stuff. So, and I want to support all these
Absolutely.
bands, you know? So,
I get it.
um,
I get it. And there, I got to tell you, there's like so many bands that I wish I could like work with.
right.
And then I think about it, I'm like, well, wait a second, like I don't want to pull a. I feel like I've put the stake in the ground. I've made a mission statement. I love not just this music, but I love this like the scene and this idea, and I really want to see it through. I really want to stick out this idea. So as much as I love like. There's, I don't know, it's like certain bands. I don't want to name drop any and
Sure. Yeah.
make
Yeah.
them feel weird, but like, as much as I'd want to work with some other bands, like I just really kind of want to stick into this thing. And like yourself, I have, you know, a more eclectic taste in music, of
Right.
course. But yeah, it's sort of an experiment to see if it works, quite honestly.
Well, I
So
mean, so far it sounds like it's going really
yeah,
great,
so
man. I
far it's
mean,
going well. Yeah,
yeah, no,
it's going pretty good.
I'm always excited to hear like, I mean, like, you know, folks like you and Rob at Wiretap, you know, like, I mean, you
Hmm.
guys are like really tapping into like some, you know, some really awesome bands, and like it's really showing like your guys' work is paying off, and like, you know, I applaud you guys, and you know, I congratulate you on all your
Right
success.
on. Thanks, man. I
Yeah.
appreciate it, especially coming from a fellow label owner. It really means a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, you
There's
know,
only a few of us that know what it really, you know, what really goes into it. So,
yeah, it's so
yeah,
funny. Like I remember, you're familiar with the band The Velveteen, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Well, you know, I was talking with Josh Staples not long ago, and he used to run a label
Mm-hmm.
himself, and I went on like a radio show that he was doing to help promote one of the releases on the record.
Mm-hmm.
And before we got on the air, I started asking him. I was like, yeah, so like when you were doing your label, like, I mean, is there any advice you give me? He's like, just don't
Yeah,
do it. And I'm
yeah.
like, okay.
That's like the running joke. I feel like I'll say that sometimes. Like, so what does it take to run a label? Or what would you say? Like, yeah, don't do it.
Yeah,
Don't
don't do
start. I mean,
it.
it's a shit ton of work,
It
but
is. It really
it's
is. Yeah.
it's very fulfilling. I find. I mean, it's like, I, you know, it's just sitting and packing records for hours. You know, luckily I have my wife that helps out with a lot of stuff, especially recently. Adam used to help out with some stuff, but we're trying to socially distance at the moment.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's a lot of work. It's just like groundwork, just to literally get the records into your hands and then out the door to people. It's a lot of coordination,
It is.
and then you add things like promo and marketing and like, yeah, it's a lot logistics.
I mean, is there one thing that you might point to as being the hardest hurdle
Hmm.
as a label owner who's doing it like basically by yourself? You know, I mean, you know, within the scope of like the DIY, you know, world, like,
Yeah.
I mean, because all of those things are hard, you know,
Yeah.
but like if there was one thing that you would say is like the hardest,
Yeah.
but like, and we're not talking about like finding the bands or anything like that.
No,
Like,
no, 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 no,
purely
no.
like logistics, you know, like,
Well, I guess I would say that the logistics can be learned, right, over time. I think like I would say just the hardest part in general is like the marketing and promotion aspect, because it's such a gray area. It's like there's no clear roadmap for how you put a record out. You know, like
right,
there's no like for making a schedule, setting up a pre-sale, like when do you do a single, when do you do a video, like when do you, you know, what are the different things you can do to promote how do you get people to pay attention? Like that's the single most important thing, and I think it's the single most hard to like nail down idea. And, you know, the logistics, obviously, like, you know, just like figuring out like what shipping platform is going to integrate with my web store. Like that's difficult, but you can figure all that out. Like
sure,
if you spend enough time, I think it's that like magic thing. It's like what will get someone to like click into your Instagram profile, click on the link, go into Spotify, and like listen to your song, and then like maybe go and buy your record. I think
right.
that's obviously like I don't have like the best idea of what that thing is, but I'm like getting closer, like getting better and better till I like figuring out what people want to see to like get them to actually listen. That's the hardest part.
Right. Well, that's great perspective, and you know, I think that you guys are doing a great job. Like I said, you're crushing
Thank you,
it.
man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and you know, move on to one of the songs off of your new record,
Awesome.
and just to give a little bit more info about the record and where they can find it.
Yeah, so the new Kill Lincoln record, it's called Can't Complain. It's out August 7th. I'm not sure when this is going to air, but August 7th, it's probably going to be out by now. On streaming platforms, and there is vinyl at badtimerecords.com. We sold out of the first pressing, but there is a second pressing, which again I think by now will be available at the website. And I'm really excited about it. It's Kill Lincoln's first full-length record in 7 years.
Wow.
We did some EPs and stuff, but it's our first LP in 7 years. We sort of have a couple new members in the band. It's like a newfound energy and camaraderie in the band. It's just, I think it all shows in the songs. It's fun. The songs are a little bit shorter, tighter. I'm really excited about the record. So.
Well, that's killer, man. And hey, thanks so much for being on. This is the first episode that we've done. So thanks for letting me have the opportunity to chat with you and to get a little bit more information about Bad Time Records and Kill Lincoln.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate you starting up the podcast and having me be on it. So best of luck with that.
Hey, thanks so much. All right, talk to you soon, Mike. Cheers.
All right, thanks, Andy.
Wow, this is pretty hard.